Matt Lenihan for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store and Our Kings Competitions. Gareth A. Davies, appreciate you jumping on. There's a lot to talk about, mate, this morning. Rumoured cards, press conferences, people being cleared, a returning fighter, which I saw in the news yesterday, which nearly blew my mind. I want to start with this rumoured card, February 22nd. Every time these shows keep getting announced, we keep hearing, oh, if this happens, this could be the best card we've ever seen. But I have to say, if this card is bang accurate from what's been reported, Parker, Dubois, Better Bivol for me on its own is good enough. Just give me that. Jaron Ennis, Shiraz, Jean Caballel. If that happens, that's possibly number one in history. What do you make of what's going to potentially happen?
Well, I think it's a fantastic card, as you say. I mean, Artur Beterbiev and Dimitri Bivol sits on his own, into round 13. And what I believe will, if they don't stop each other in the second fight, I think there'll be a trilogy anyway. Dubois and Parker is a great fight. It's number 3 against number 4 in the world if you take Usyk and Fury as 1 and 2 at the moment. Zhang Caballel, really fascinating fight. And what was the other one? Shiraz and Boots Ennis. What, against each
No,
other?
no, 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 no. Shiraz versus Carlos Adames for the
Yeah.
title, and then Jaron Ennis versus Virgil Ortiz. Um, he doesn't, you look at all these fights standalone, they could clearly sit at the top of any card, and people should be more than happy with it.
Yeah, well, they've talked about all of the fights on some of the Riyadh season cards being all main events. Those are really big main events, headliners. So I doubt whether they'll all come off, but it's brilliant that they're talking about a massive card for February the 22nd. I've had strong indications for a while that Parker and Dubois would be facing each other. It's a great voluntary by Dubois, but he seems to be fearless, and Frank Warren, his promoter, seems to be fearless about who they put him in with next, and they've got reason to do so. It's I think we'll get confirmation soon because it's not that far off.
No, I think Frank Warren yesterday in an interview with him hinted to me that look, all things will be revealed quite soon, and there may be one or two surprises. I think that Dubois fight you mentioned there about them being fearless with him. He's come over so many hurdles, like all the good stuff, the bad stuff. He's riding a wave a bit at the minute, but also for Joseph Parker, who I think maybe felt a bit left out a little bit with what's gone on the past few cards. He's getting what he deserves now, I believe, after 2 good performances, a real chance and an opportunity for a world title.
Well,
What a terrific fight!
yeah, it is. It's the two most resurgent heavyweights outside Fury and Usyk, isn't it? And they're the two guys that maybe along with Agit Kabayel as well, deserve big fights. So the right moves are being made, the right noises are being made, and it really augurs well for 2025, given that, if I can throw this in there as well, Eddie Hearn's now talking about, you know, Tyson Fury, win or lose, he'd like to see him in the ring with Anthony Joshua again. And then if Joshua looks good in that fight, then they want to get the Dubois fight on again. But who knows what's going to happen with Dubois first? That's throwing ahead all the way through 2025. They're all good noises,
Yeah.
because we've had a fantastic 2024. It's been a brilliant year for boxing for many reasons. And it really is onwards and upwards. And there's a desire to keep it going, and I think it's brilliant.
Yes. Oh, touching on the Joshua stuff, I spoke to Frank yesterday and said, providing Tyson comes through, which look, nobody knows what's going to happen in that main event. It's 50-50, maybe some will edge it to Usyk after the first. But either way,
He is the betting favourite. He is the betting
yes.
favourite, yeah.
But if Tyson comes through, I suggested surely at that point, is there a rubber match? You won all, you have another one with Usyk, or do you veer off in different directions? And he hinted at, yeah, he thinks they would be. But
It's the
also,
time to do. It's the time. I've always said this. If there's good reason to have Fury against Joshua before you do the trilogy with Alexander Usyk, because it kind of. I think once Usyk and Fury have fought a third time, you've just decided who is the number one of the era. If Tyson has the legs and can beat Usyk this time. And I do think he'll be better conditioned this time. I do think Fury can win it on points. I don't think it's a stoppage. I think they'll both go, but it depends what legs he's got left in him. But it's going to be a close fight again, in my view.
What did you make of reports circulating? There was yesterday. It came out on the Mail. I think it was Jeff Powell suggesting that apparently Wladimir Klitschko, at 48 years of age, was preparing for a comeback, and there was talks behind the scenes of him facing Daniel Dubois for the IBF. Now, when you hear reports like that, I was just like, "What? Like, are we going? No disrespect to him. Like, I'm sure he's in good condition still, but are we going back in time?" What did you make of them reports?
Well, the last Klitschko fight from memory was 2017, wasn't it? So he's been out for 7 years. He was 41 when he fought on that brilliant night against Anthony Joshua. Look, if he wanted to make a comeback, that's up to him. But against Daniel Dubois, a young, hungry lion who throws exocet missiles with his fists, he's a massive puncher who's flying high at the moment. Very dangerous fight for Klitschko. Maybe it was just a tease, that because he has teased wanting to come back a couple of times, and I think the news about it was there had been talks of it. It had been mentioned amongst in the background with the promoters. Again, we're in this time where people are talking about comebacks at the moment, aren't they? Everyone wants a comeback. Do we blame Jake Paul for that? Maybe. Everybody wants to have a pop at it. We saw, who was it fought the other day? It was
Oliver McCall, was it?
Fought and won a couple of weeks ago in a fight, and Lennox Lewis had said that if Mike Tyson had beaten Jake Paul, he might come back. He was reported as saying that, but I think they were all throwaway remarks. These are big calls to make. I think Daniel Dubois, a bit like Daniel Dubois against Jake Paul, completely unrealistic. I mean, he obviously threw it out there a couple of weeks ago that he'd fight Jake Paul. It's only because there's money available, and boxing spins on money, doesn't it? So
also, it's very clever PR off the back of it. Into of course, it is. Yeah, you chuck your name in with the guy who's just had a fight with all them views. Go on, and then if it did come off, it's win-win, isn't it? So you lose nothing by chucking your name in.
Exactly.
We'll touch on that then. We'll do that next. The Jake Paul stuff. So Carl Froch, Froch on fighting. It comes up on my feed all the time. One person's face I was surprised to see in the thumbnail was yourself alongside. I think it was Nikisa, Ariel Helwani. The comments he's used in relation to yourself, because he's gone off on this Jake Paul stuff again. He's referenced yourself as a kiss ass and said that basically saying that it's ludicrous to suggest that Jake Paul would beat him, and says that basically it's disrespectful to professional boxing. Just give me your response to Carl. Obviously, you're not the first person he spoke on, and won't be the last. He's voicing his opinion left, right, and centre. Just give me your response to what he's mentioned on this scenario.
Well, Carl's entitled to his opinion. All I was doing was my radio show last week, and we had Nikisa Bidarian on, myself and Adam Catterall. And all I said was, full disclosure, they gave me massive access to Jake and Logan at the event last week. And Nikisa always gives me access to Jake whenever I'm around them. And ditto, I got access to Mike Tyson. And as I said, my full disclosure was, I think Jake Paul's good for boxing. I don't think he's bad for boxing. And Carl's fully entitled to his opinion. I'm not a clown. As he said, who's the biggest clown out of the three of us? Whoever is the biggest clown is the biggest clown in his view. And that's not a problem. I think what Carl's point was also bound around me saying I do think the Canelo fight could happen with Jake, because there's so much money available in that fight. And it's a win-win for Canelo. I mean, I know who Cesar Chavez Jr. was mentioned as a potential opponent of Jake Paul next. Now that's come up, and obviously Canelo's fought Chavez Jr. and maybe that's the route that they're thinking in terms of taking that. But Ariel Helwani's replied to him. I think Nikisa Bidarian's replied to him. I haven't really got anything to say on it. on social media other than talking about it. Carl's entitled to his opinion. He's like a super troll, but he does have a lot of reason in his thinking as well. He goes all the way over to one side, and he's being, he's talking to the purest boxing fans who don't want the sport diluted at all by this modern movement of misfits type fighters, YouTube fighters, people coming into boxing who haven't boxed all their lives, which Jake Paul hasn't done. I think, I think deep down, I do think if Carl met Jake Paul or went on Ariel Helwani's show, which I think Ariel Helwani is trying to get him to do, it's very interesting. Listen, I've known Carl a very long time. He was a brilliant fighter. He was an absolute thrill to follow. As a fighter, and I've always really got on with him as a person. But he's got his shtick that he does on his Froch on fighting, the Froch-alongs. He's good fun, and it'd be remiss of me to be annoyed with him. I'm not annoyed with Carl in the slightest. It's a bit of fun. He does it a little bit tongue in cheek, and I didn't know about it till someone told me about it, to be honest. Someone sent me some messages saying, oh, Carl's been mean to you. I don't think he was at all. He's just expressed a viewpoint, which is he wants me to be against what Jake Paul's doing and what Nikisa Bidarian's doing. I've just spent an amazing week in Texas. Yes, of course, we felt flat by the performance of Mike Tyson. And, it was sad to see that he hasn't got it in him anymore. And Jake Paul augmented his position in the space, and that's what it is.
Would you be ever interested in seeing Carl Froch and Jake Paul?
Of course,
I would.
It's a great fight, and Carl hasn't fought for 10 years, and much as he is in great shape, and the nose is straight now, and he's looking beautiful, and he's grey haired and distinguished, and he's got that beautiful relationship with Rachel, his wife, who was always the loudest person supporting him ringside. While you were sitting there writing your piece, you could hear Rachel screaming for him. They're a fantastic couple. I love when he gets her on and they do their Q&As together. No, I've got nothing but good things to say about Carl. I think he's great for the sport. And as he said, he's not really serious about fighting Jake Paul. But, given how big I think I said, I think my comments about Tony Bellew and Carl Froch potentially fighting him after the enormity of the Mike Tyson fight and the 60 million watching live, 65 million watching live, 106 million in total, the 50 million watching the women's fight. I wondered if they're big enough in terms of names for him to have that fight next. Probably big in terms of numbers in the UK, but I couldn't see them being big compared to the Mike Tyson numbers. So he's kind of he's created a rod for his own back now with who he can fight and how big it's going to be after the Mike Tyson fight. But yeah, I would see it, but I don't think Carl is serious about fighting him.
I was going to say
he'd win with one hand tied behind his back though.
No, but if he's got two, look, it is what it is. I think.
Who are you picking?
I'll be honest with you. I think Carl. There's no disrespect to Jake Paul because I understand what he's doing. And we're normally supposed to sit on the fence, but I'm not going to for this. Carl
10 years out is a long time. I think it'll be closer than we think. But you've got to pick Carl to win.
I mean, I'm not going to hesitate. I think Carl or Bellew would win. But then again,
I think Bellew more so. I think Bellew, because I think maybe pretty even. I'd like to see Bellew and Froch fight as well.
yeah. Do you know what? Yeah, I wouldn't say no to that. Like it.
I tell you, Tony, even though he pulled that stunt out in America, was brilliant to sit down with afterwards. Just absolutely sat down with him with talks. Absolutely full of life. For me, it's all part of the theatricality of what's going on at the moment. And let me just say, just to cap off of that, it just amused me in the end when I saw what Carl had done, and that Ariel Helwani had bitten and was inviting him onto the show as well. I'd love to see that because it'd be quite funny.
Everyone caught a bit of some off the back of that. I would like to see him go on Ariel's show, or actually Ariel go on Carl's show because that would be funny.
No, maybe, yeah.
Vice versa. Either way. Look, I was at the press conference yesterday for Derek Chisora versus Wallin. Supposed to be Miller, but Miller's had issues in the background. with Dimitri Salita. I think I say a much dangerous opponent just because of the differences he offers in terms of Miller. I think we know what we get with Big Baby Miller. I think Derek does. He's a come forward, strong fighter, a bit like Chisora, obviously younger, but then you've got this big towering southpaw who offers a bit of something different and he's sparred before. What do you make of this matchup for Dell's last fight in the UK?
Well, I got quite excited about Chisora and Miller first one. I was a bit disappointed when it was Otto Wallin, but again, I saw the press conference yesterday. I wasn't at the press conference, but I saw it, and I can see it's a real fun fight, and they're both invested in it. I'm just going to turn this because the light. They're both heavily invested in it, and I think, oh God, sorry, got sunlight obviously beaming in here. They're both heavily invested in it. I fucked up with my camera work here. There we go. Is that a bit better?
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine. We were. Go on for it.
I'm really invested in the fight now, but there was an element of me that was really, really looking forward to the smack talk with Derek and Jarrell Miller, and would they push and shove and all of that kind of stuff. But seeing them work together yesterday was very good, and I think it'll be a great event. And Frank will be able to put on a lot of his fighters on that card, notwithstanding the the December 7th card that's coming up as well, actually, which is very good. I think we might end up with Lawrence Okoli at some point against Derek Chisora as well.
You think?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, he's in the mix
There's
now,
a finality.
Well?
I think it's Derek's last fight in Manchester, but he'll probably still have one in London. And who knows, he might have one in Riyadh as well. It might be his trilogy of fights to finish.
Well, I think what he suggested is this will be his last one in the UK, but he would like to do his last one, I believe, in Zimbabwe. That would be the ideal thing for him to do. Whether that is logistically possible or however it works out in boxing today, you never know. But that's what he would like to do. There's almost, I get this feeling from Dell now when you speak to him. It's nice to see him in this sort of place that he's in. We all know you don't know what you're going to get when he turns up to a press conference. You might get a really happy person. You might get a table launched across the room. But he's in this space now where he was talking about, I looked at the posters, started crying. I realised it's coming to an end. And it's like you see this, I don't want to say softer side because you can tell it's in him still. But he now realises sort of where he's at, kind of thing, I think. Whereas
he's a cult figure. He's a cult figure in British boxing, and I think he's earned it and he deserves it. And I think that's and everybody likes getting the love for something they're good at and getting recognised. And I think he is recognised, and he's he's a Hall of Famer for us. He's a modern Hall of Fame, and he's fought a who's who of he's fought the 1 and 2 in the world right now in the heavyweight division. He's a great character. And someone who he's fought the last era of a great heavyweight as well in Vitaly Klitschko, the night he scrapped with David Hay at the press conference, the melee, and we know the history of that. What happened between the pair of them afterwards, where they become friends, and he's trained by David, and they fight each other, but he's trained by and then managed by him, and the old boys act together. So he's a phenomenal story, and he's still, like I say, he's still got a bit of that wild man in him. At what is he, 42 now, I think, but don't want to see him too long.
Yeah, I think they've got to be the right fights for him. I think a Dillian Whyte third fight would have been an ideal way to sort of have.
I think that'll happen. I still think that'll happen, by the way, because I think he won't be able to avoid it, because I think it will come up at some point as long as Dillian goes well. By the way, what I thought was interesting yesterday, and it showed the levels of cooperation now going on between Queensberry and Matchroom, was that they didn't clash their press conferences yesterday, which I thought was very interesting.
It was interesting, but I saw Sonny Edwards' comments on on that, and he wasn't happy at all, saying, "Look, no offense, I get everyone's happy and I'm working on the same terms, but not to clash that press conference when your fighter's making weight." And I think he brought up an interesting point actually, because whilst there is this cohesion, there is also an element of fighters making it. Could it have started earlier? I don't know. Maybe they're looking at prime time for views and viewership on YouTube. Maybe if they do rearrange, if it's not at lunchtime. What do you make of the comments made by Sonny
Um,
and in terms of the weights and the fighters and stuff like that?
was that time given so that did most people travel from one press conference to the other then?
Probably. Yeah, you've brought up another point there. Probably a few. I know a few of them there because obviously not every outlet, I suppose, has the luxury of having maybe multiple people available for two things. But yeah, I know there was probably at least three people from there who were going to the other to back to Birmingham and Birmingham Manchester 2 hours, I think maybe. So
Well, my take on it, you've made me realise I did see that from Sonny Edwards, and I think he made a very good point. He's the fighter at the end of the day, and it's about the fighters making weight, but presumably, um, I mean, what I think what he felt was, look, this is a press conference launch, and we're fighting tomorrow on Saturday night, and it's seen as a really big fight, and it is a big fight. It's a huge flyweight clash.
great fight.
It is a great fight, and again, in some ways, they've got such distinctive styles that you can pick a winner, but it could easily go the other way. In a big way. I mean, it could be Galal's night to shine. I've actually gone back and forth on this fight, and I'm going Sonny on points now. And when I look at the vast experience he's got, I just think if he gets a rhythm, he gets some momentum in the fight, I think he'll be very difficult to pin down. But it's a great fight nonetheless. But I think his point was well made. He's always on point with things like that, and I think a lot of people will agree with him that maybe they got pushed. Again, this is the lighter weight thing as well, where they don't get the resonance they deserve very often. But at the end of the day, there was a lot of news around it. There has been a lot of news around it, and it wouldn't have been a good thing to make it clash because Derek Chisora is a big draw as well. So, but you have to. I think he made it. It was a point well made. Put it that way. And they probably found out late that they were doing this, and it didn't convene with that weight cutting because, as you say, that evening time is when they're getting into thinking about their. I think he said he was already on weight, but it wasn't necessarily him; it was everyone else.
Yeah, he was quite keen to say, why is this happening on my card, on our show kind of thing. And look, I think there's two sides to it, and we all understand it. Look,
no, it's a point well made, though, Matt. I think it's a point well made, and you have to congratulate him on that. Don't take us for granted. At the end of the day, we're in a very difficult sport. We're fighting. We've got these hard weight cuts to make, and those guys don't cut weight. We do. The heavyweights don't cut weight. We do. So you have to go along with that because it was like a union man talking for his union. It really was like the shop steward talking for his union.
Yeah, definitely. Last one from me. There's reports of obviously Conor Benn's called out Barrios in Spanish on social media. I quite like that. You're rumoured to see Eubank versus Lara. Benn has been cleared and had UKAD come out and say they're not going to challenge the decision. So all that's left to do now for Conor is to obtain a license from somewhere, really, isn't it? It doesn't necessarily have to be with the British Boxing Board of Control. He can get a license anywhere as long as he comes back to the country and have his permission signed off. Is that correct, or does he still have to come in front of the board? Because I think isn't that the whole sort of point, the thing that he doesn't have a license with the British Boxing Board of Control, that he dropped it, but UKAD aren't going to challenge this decision, so he should be clear.
Did we see a statement from UKAD or not?
It come out saying that they're not challenging this decision by NADP, that is not cleared, because the National Anti-Doping Panel came out, didn't they, and basically said, yep, cleared. But then UKAD had a certain amount of time, I think, to appeal that decision.
I didn't get a statement from them yesterday, but I know that the time is up anyway. I think it was up in terms of the 3 weeks that they had to appeal. I think there's a lot in the background that may or may not come out eventually, showing why they won't appeal. I spoke to Conor Benn last week at Charlie Sims's lunch for the launch of Origins for their card for huge boxing that's kicking off on December the 13th at the York Hall.
Good card that as well, by the way.
Very good card, George Lydiard and others. Yeah.
Paddy Donovan, very
Paddy
good.
Donovan, the heavyweight they've got that's going to go big guns. No, they're very ambitious with that as well. And Charlie's talking about potentially 6 events next year. So I spoke to Conor and I spoke to Tony Sims. I spoke to Charlie Sims, who's obviously got a promoter's license now, but manages Conor Benn, has for a long time. I understand that obviously they'll have to do an interview with the board to get the license, which is kind of part of the system anyway. And it's good news. It's very good news for him, obviously, that UKAD aren't taking it any further. But I understand that WADA can still intervene.
All right.
But it doesn't look like they will. But they've got the authority to intervene as well, I think, based on strict liability. But it's so mired in legalese, this case, and VADA have been part of the NAPD hearing as well. That I think, we've gone round and round and round the houses, and it's been less than satisfactory in the way it's been handled, but on all sides, frankly. There've been impasses and standoffs. I don't think it's been brilliantly handled. I am pleased to see Conor back. I do think the system needs a revision. I do think we need more visibility and transparency around when it does go wrong, if someone feels wronged. And I think I think it's a unique case in that, and I hope it all comes out. And there are things in the background that need discussing, definitely. And I think we need a homogeneity in the testing system with all the bodies, so that one isn't crossing with another. I think it just needs one testing body for the entire sport.
Yeah, 100%. I think this has
and all
to
the
be
commissions and agreed on the same principles, because he had no license with the UK. There's always been a way of getting a license. I mean, I was talking to Lord Hart of Harrow, Colin Hart, last night, and he was telling me about, I won't ruin his column today. It may be out already, but there's been one-eyed boxers in the past who've gone to other commissions to get a license to box when one commission wouldn't let them. And I think that the homogeneity should be that if you are suspended, you should be suspended globally until the issue is dealt with properly. That's my view on it anyway.
I think, just to sum up, I think what this needs to be now, because of how long it's gone on and because of everything that's come out, this needs to serve as the case point for a huge change in everything that we do. Because like you mentioned there, right and wrong on both sides, the way it was handled from both sides, and where we're at now and how long this is actually being dragged out, this should serve as some sort of benchmark for boxing. And maybe, look, with the influx of Riyadh season, maybe they can help out as well, and maybe look to focus on stuff like that, because it's often been a case of drug testing and the money it costs and everything involved. But look, we've been talking about this for 2 years. I think everyone just wants to see this topic end now and start talking about him and Barrios, him and Eubank and Lara.
I think it'll be Eubank. Yeah, I agree. And I think it'll be him and Eubank. And my understanding is that they're going to go, they want to get the fathers in the corners for the fight. And they want to go 2 stadiums, Spurs and Wembley, if they can, and do it a 2-fight deal and have 2 fights for them next year. And I think it'll be a lot of fun when they fight each other. Bloodlines fight.
Proper, I'm gonna say proper bloodlines. Gareth, appreciate you jumping on. We've covered a lot today.
Always a pleasure, Lifesaver. Always a pleasure.
Anytime, no problem. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Cheers.